Bewitched gave us 8 seasons of magical chaos and brilliant suburban witchcraft. But what happened to the cast after Samantha Steffens twitched her nose for the last time is wilder than any spell she cast. Here's where they ended up in 2026, from Hollywood legends to tragic losses, wild reinventions, and careers that defied the odds. The real stories behind Bewitched are truly wild. Take Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Samantha Steffens, the ultimate TV witch, quietly putting up with a suburban marriage across 8 seasons, from 1964 to 1972. Elizabeth was only 31 years old when the show premiered. As the daughter of famous director Robert Montgomery, she already had serious dramatic acting credits to her name. That famous nose twitch everyone copied. It was actually her scrunching her upper lip, combined with clever camera angles and face mechanics. Classic Hollywood, Elizabeth ended up marrying 4 times. Her first marriage, to New York socialite Frederick Gallatin Cameron in 1954, barely lasted a year. Her second husband, Jim, was a volatile alcoholic. Her third was Bewitched producer William Asher from 1963 to 1974. They had 3 kids together, William Jr., Robert, and Rebecca, and both of her pregnancies were written right into Samantha's storyline. Her 4th husband was actor Robert Foxworth, married in 1993, who stayed by her side. She was also a brave lodger but a code advocate when it was highly risky. Today, Elizabeth is no longer with us, having passed away on May 18, 1995 at just 62. The gap between her real self and her Hollywood image remains one of television's most frustrating tragedies. Then there is Dick York, who played the original Darrin from 1964 to 1969. Dick was 35 when the show started, a working actor who had co-starred with Gary Cooper in They Came to Cordura in 1959. It was on that set where Dick York suffered the horrific back injury that would painfully define the next decade of his life. Doctors prescribed him painkillers, and they worked until they stopped working at the original dose. By the time he became a household name, he relied on those pills just to stand up and deliver the physical comedy fans loved. The cast knew, the crew knew, and the network knew, but the public had absolutely no idea. Off-screen, Dick York married his childhood sweetheart, Joan. They met on a radio show at age 12 and married on November 17, 1951. She stuck by him through heavy addiction and total financial ruin. Together, they raised 5 children, Christopher, Kim, Mandy, Matthew, and Stacy, plus 13 grandkids. After collapsing on set in 1969, he never went back. Instead, he got clean, launched a homeless charity called Acting for Life, and gave away whatever he had left. Dick York passed away on February 20, 1992. At 63, his famous character made millions laugh, but the real man was so much better than any character he ever portrayed. Enter Dick Sargent, who took over as Darrin in season 6 under most brutal conditions imaginable. Dick was 39 when he stepped in. And there's one crazy detail that makes this story wild. He was actually the runner-up for the role back in 1964. Losing out the first time, 5 years later, he got the gig under terrible circumstances. The fan backlash was instant and brutal. He survived 3 seasons with pure class, while secretly dealing with a massive burden of his own. During his entire run on the show, and for years after, he hid a secret that would have destroyed his career. He was gay. He had to bury his true self behind fake public personas, draining his energy every single day. Dick Sargent never married and had no kids. Early on, he even invented a fake wife for the press to protect his Hollywood career. He lived with his partner for 20 years until the man died of a brain hemorrhage in 1979. Later, he was with partner Albert Williams. He finally came out in 1991 at a Los Angeles Pride parade, with Elizabeth Montgomery standing right beside him in total support. Dick Sargent passed on July 8, 1994 at 64, just 1 year before Elizabeth Montgomery herself. And losing both Darrins so close together feels like a tragedy that television history never fully grieved. Then there was Agnes Moorehead, who played Endora, the beautifully dramatic, scene-stealing witch mother-in-law, for all 8 seasons. Agnes was 63 when the show started, with 4 Oscar nominations and credits alongside Orson Welles in the Mercury Theatre. By any standard, she was one of the most talented, classically trained actresses in American history. So what was she doing on a sitcom? Making a ton of cash and doing it with a drive that put everyone else to shame. Privately, she called it that witch show. Looking down on it, she took the gig for money, not art. Still, she gave Endora her absolute all. Powerful, hilarious, theatrical, and stealing every single scene. Agnes Moorehead married twice, both times unhappily. Her first was actor John Griffithly, marrying in 1930 and divorcing in 1952 after 22 years. During that marriage, the couple brought home a foster son named Sean, but things fell apart so badly she eventually cut him off completely, leaving him zero in her will. Her second marriage, to actor Robert Gist in 1954, lasted just 4 years. After 1958, she locked down her private life. Agnes Moorehead died on April 30th, 1974, at 73 from uterine cancer. Endora was a force of nature, but Agnes was all about the craft, deserving a much grander final bow than Hollywood ever gave her. Marion Lorne, who played the sweet Aunt Clara, hopelessly scatterbrained witch who couldn't get her spells, has to work from 1964 until she died mid-series. Most viewers assumed she was in her late 60s. She was actually in her 80s. Marion was born August 12, 1883, making her about 81 when Bewitched premiered, pulling off physical comedy on national television every single week without the audience ever knowing. Off-screen, Marion was married just once to British playwright Walter Hackett, starting way back in 1916. They had a real creative partnership, and she starred in several plays he wrote. Walter passed away in 1944, leaving Marion a widow over 20 years before she ever joined Bewitched. They didn't have kids, but she brought such deep warmth to Aunt Clara that age didn't even matter. She was just wonderful, and talent has no expiration date. Marion passed on May 9th, 1968 at 84, and the show quietly retired Aunt Clara instead of recasting, because some roles belong to one actor forever. Then came her Emmy, announced after she passed. She never even knew she won. At the ceremony, they called her name, but she was already gone. Truly one of the most heartbreaking moments in television history. The industry finally saying, "Job well done," to someone who wasn't around to hear it. Next up, David White, who played Larry Tate, the arrogant, credit-stealing advertising boss for 8 whole seasons. David was 48 when they started, a veteran character actor. He played Larry with perfect comedic timing and absolute charm for the whole run. David White married twice. His first wife was Broadway actress Mary Welch, marrying in 1952. They had a son, Jonathan, born in 1955. David adored his son so much, he actually asked the show's writers to name Larry Tate's on-screen baby Jonathan in his honor. Tragedy struck when Mary died in 1958 at 35, following complications with her second pregnancy. David raised the boy alone before marrying Lisa Figgis, and they welcomed a daughter named Alexandra. On December 21st, 1988, Jonathan boarded Pan Am Flight 103. A terrorist bomb destroyed it over Lockerbie. He was 33 years old. David spent his remaining years fighting quietly but relentlessly for the Lockerbie victims' families, scarred by grief that never truly healed. David White died on November 27, 1990, at 74, less than 2 years after Lockerbie. He was laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery alongside his sons. Larry Tate kept America laughing for 8 seasons. David White deserved a much softer ending than the hand he was dealt. Then there was Erin Murphy, who played Tabitha starting in season 2 around 1966. Erin was only about 2 years old when she got cast, and here is a secret almost nobody realized. Both Erin and her twin sister Darrin shared the role of Tabitha, swapped out by the crew to stay within strict legal work limits for kids. Everyone at home thought they were watching just one little girl. They were watching two, switched so perfectly that the public never suspected a thing. Erin Murphy has been married 3 times and raised 6 boys. Her first was to Terry Rogers from 1984 to 1989, having 2 sons, Carson and Jason. Her second, to Eric Eden from 1993 to 1998, had 1 son, Clark. She married her current husband, Darrin Dunkel, in May 1998, and they are still together today, raising 3 sons, Parker, Dylan, and Grant. When her son Parker was diagnosed with autism, Erin stepped up as a major champion for autism awareness. In 2026, Erin Murphy is 61 years old. She is still one of the biggest champions of the Bewitched legacy. She hits fan events with a genuine warmth, showing she is totally at peace with where she started. In a true story packed with addiction, grief, and loss, Erin Murphy is the survivor you root for, and she is still winning. A less ghostly joined the cast in season 6 as Esmeralda. the incredibly nervous, flighty witch whose spells had a habit of making things invisible, including herself. Elise was about 45 when she joined the show. She was already a Tony Award-winning Broadway star whose massive stage credentials easily outranked most of her TV peers before she ever shot a scene. Behind the scenes, Elise ghostly married only once to an Italian-American actor named Felice Orlandi. They met early in her career and wed in 1953. They stayed together for 50 years until Phyllis died of lung cancer in 2003, just 4 years before Alice passed away. They chose not to have kids, and by all accounts, their marriage was built on pure, mutual devotion. Just two working actors quietly began a life far away from Hollywood gossip for over half a century, but playing Bernice Clifton on Designing Women from 1986 to 1993 finally showed the world what Elise Ghostly could do at full power. She was sharp, layered, and funny in ways that took serious talent. That role scored her an Emmy nomination, sealing her spot as one of her generation's most beloved character actresses. Elise Ghostly passed away on September 21, 2007, at 84. Hollywood labeled her a character actress and left her in that box. But the truth is, she was completely irreplaceable. That is a rare kind of stardom, whether the credits ever admitted it or not. Then there was Casey Rogers, playing Louise Tate, Larry's clueless wife, from 1966 to 1972. Casey was 40 when she stepped into a role that nobody had left on good terms. Irene Vernon simply walked away to start a new career in advertising, leaving Rogers to inherit the role, the wardrobe, and a heavy black wig that was custom-made to make her look exactly like the woman she replaced. She wore that wig until producers finally let her be herself, and honestly, viewers barely even noticed the swap. Before television, her biggest role was in Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train in 1951. She played Farley Granger Spitter, a strange wife who gets strangled in the first 20 minutes. Talk about a wild way to kick off a career. In real life, she married press agent Walter Bud Lewis and had 4 kids, daughters Mona and Monica, and sons Mike and Jay, and kept weekly family dinners as a permanent tradition. After Bewitched, she completely reinvented herself by becoming a writer, co-authoring 5 books, including the Bewitched cookbook, turning Louise Tate into her own little cottage industry through pure devotion. She spent her last years fighting throat cancer with incredible grit, even flying cross-country in 2005 for Elizabeth Montgomery Ace statue dedication while still undergoing treatment. Casey Rogers passed away on July 6, 2006, at 80 years old. The show was lucky to have her. Enter Alice Pierce, who played Gladys Kravitz, the screaming, endlessly doubted neighbor whose only real crime was noticing what was actually happening right across the street. Starring in the first 2 seasons from 1964 to 1966, Alice was 46 when it all started. She was a Broadway veteran who grew up attending European schools, following her banker father's job around the world. After falling off a swing at 9, she permanently underdeveloped her chin and then built a whole career out of that look. She openly credited her chin for her success, and she wasn't wrong. She married twice, first to writer John Rocks in 1948 until his sudden death in 1957, then to director Paul Davis in 1964. That timing is incredibly important. By 1964, Alice Pierce knew she was dying, diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer in 1963. And given 6 months, she kept it a secret from almost everyone on set. But she showed up anyway. She delivered brilliant physical comedy for 2 seasons, while everyone around her saw only pure talent. Alice Pierce passed away on March 3, 1966, at 48. ABC interrupted its primetime broadcast to announce her passing, and her Emmy arrived months later. Paul Davis accepted it, having given up his own career to care for her. He never remarried. Some losses simply don't leave room for anything else. Mabel Albertson played Phyllis Stephens, Darrin's neurotic, meddling mother who ended every single visit by yelling, "Frank, take me home. I have a sick headache," appearing across most of the show, run from 1964 to 1971. Mabel was 63 years old when Bewitched first premiered, and she came to the show with 5 decades of experience in vaudeville, radio stage, and film. She had already played overbearing mothers and mothers-in-law for stars like Jerry Lou, Jerry Lewis, and Dick Van Dyke, and Anthony Franciosa before ever stepping onto the Bewitched set. No one on television played that specific character type with more sharp precision. Her little brother was Jack Albertson, a Tony and Academy Award-winning actor. He was one of his generation's most talented character actors. The two grew up in Massachusetts, the kids of Russian and Polish immigrants. Mabel married twice. Her son George eventually became a film director, marrying Cloris Leachman and bringing one of Hollywood's most legendary actresses into the family. By 1975, Alzheimer's began taking over, keeping her in its grip for 7 long years. Mabel Albertson died on September 28, 1982 at 81 years old, 10 months after Jack. Both their ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean. The Albertson siblings took different paths, but ended up in the exact same water. Then there was Maurice Evans, who played the dramatic, Shakespeare-quoting warlock father across all 8 seasons. Maurice Evans was 63 when Bewitched premiered. The gap between his serious background and this silly role was almost impossible to measure. He was America's leading Shakespearean stage star during the 1930s and 40s. He played Hamlet on Broadway 283 times across 4 productions, a record that still stands. He won a special Tony in 1950 for his life's work and an Emmy in 1960 for playing Macbeth on television. He had starred in more televised Shakespeare plays in America than any other actor in history. Then he played a snobby warlock on a Friday night sitcom, and he played it absolutely beautifully. Born in England, Evans became an American citizen in 1941, realizing rivals like Olivia and Gielgud would always overshadow him back home. He never married, keeping his private life completely secret. He retired back to England and passed away on March 12, 1989. At 87, his memoirs came out that very year, highlighting a final, ironic twist the show handed him. The character had his name, but used the American pronunciation, Maurice, while Evans himself insisted on the traditional British version his whole life. Maurice. Every scene was basically a performance of his own name being mispronounced.